만큼 의미가 될 수.
Smith's going to continue to get run down. Very good flash pin. That needed one extra summoner spell to secure the kill. Flash forward. Trick bounces away. Red buff is on. Here comes Peanut. Javelin toss forward. Burks is running out of mana. Not going to get the kill. Trick goes down.
This is the pressure on G2 now. Are they going in?
Keeper's verdict. Flash away from. Peanut's in the pit. It's picked up by Rocks. And the Rocks Tigers eliminate G2 Esports from Worlds 2016. Congratulations to Rocks on the win. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are readying up for our second match of the day between Albus NoX Luna and Counter Logic Gaming. And just before we get to our pregame, let's remind everybody of the superstars from the CIS. It is Albus NoX Luna. Starting in the top lane, it is Smurf. PvP Stayos are in the jungle. Kira, the mid lane. A Miracle ADC. And the man I think everybody's in love with at the moment, Likrit, their coach Ansvar, backing them up on stage.
More greedy supports on the red side. It is Counter Logic Gaming, also a 2-1. We got Darshan in the top lane, Smithy in the jungle. Huhi has had a pretty good tournament so far in the mid lane. Stixay as the AD carry, After with the support, and of course, Tony Zix Gray as their coach.
All right, so both of these teams, they're vying for a quarterfinal berth. One of them is a surprise contender in Albus NoX. Before we talk about them, I want to talk about the North American squad, CLG. They have to win here to ensure at least a tiebreaker scenario, like as a minimum. But they've got to learn from their mistakes last week, which allowed Albus NoX to actually pick up a win.
Yeah, I mean, Huhi was the one targeted by Albus NoX. They got the Syndra for him, but I was so impressed by Kira's Jace, the way he played it, and they were able to punish Huhi for the lack of flash. They sent multiple members mid, and that's really well Albus NoX actually took over the game. Now, CLG, they actually have found strengths in the similar places that we do expect, where they put Darshan on tanks over and over again, couple of games of Poppy, also had the Gnar game, and then playing around the bottom lane duo. Stixay actually has the highest jungle proximity. That means that the jungler, which is Smithy, mostly around him, highest for the AD carries at least. The thing, though, is that Huhi also has had great games. Obviously, we can't forget about the Aurelion Soul, and so he's going to draw bans probably in the pick and ban phase as well.
Well, going to have a sixth man to deal with in the crowd for Albus NoX because the crowd's behind CLG. Albus NoX, they were a huge surprise. They're a joy to watch. They're exciting. This is a team that also plays around their team's strengths, you know, in Likrit being a bit crazy and a bit out there, and Smurf really having good synergy with the rest of the team.
Yep, and they've taken advantage of those strengths by putting some unconventional yet effective team comps into play. The Anivia plus the Poppy, not to mention the support brand, or even if you're just going to play Tahm Kench as a little bit more of a carry. And they've successfully snuck multiple Barons in both of their wins, which is a big reason they were able to get leads in those games. So a win here could really set ANX up to advance out of the bracket stage, because not only would they have a third win, they'd also have a 2-0 over CLG.
That's very, very important when it comes down to potential tiebreakers at the end of the day. Gentlemen, the last time we saw these teams play, that Tahm Kench surprised a lot of us in terms of how Likrit was moving around the map. Is this something that we would expect to see CLG banning? Because we can expect CLG to have Aurelion Sol banned against them. So what else are we going to be looking for?
Yeah, the Tahm Kench I actually don't think needs to be banned necessarily. I do think they should still make sure they're taking out the brand. And I think this is a super interesting game because as far as the ANX games go, people are talking about all their crazy stuff they were bringing. They beat CLG with a relatively conventional comp. I mean, Jace in the mid lane, Trundle in the top lane, Nidalee jungle. These aren't mind-bending picks, but they were still able to beat CLG with it.
Some of the best compositions that we saw from ANX before even coming to the group stage of Worlds were poke comps with variations as far as that. And the Jace, they're the only ones to have the cojones to play Jace in the mid lane. Every mid laner I talked to coming into this was like, Jace, okay, he has some good matchups up top, but in the mid lane, it's so scary because all these picks like Syndra, who they actually played it against, can kill you so easily at that level 6.
And this particular matchup last week, ANX actually won by running CLG around the map. You know, they had very clever vision. They rotated between lanes very quickly. CLG has had a full week to prepare. The question I have for you, gentlemen, can the teams now break apart what Albus NoX did last week to pick up what is still an expected win for CLG?
So one of the things that teams definitely will be ready for now are those mid-game Barons, right? Multiple mid-game Baron sneaks. I think that teams are going to be overly cautious even towards keeping vision around Baron against Albus NoX. However, I think a lot of people are going to tunnel on Lecrit and his odd champion pool, and they're going to forget about PvP stay host, because that guy has actually shown up and been one of the all-stars for this team. Definitely didn't expect it, coming into this, the world's groups, but man, that guy has been a beast for the team.
And I think one of the biggest things you would try and prevent from Albus NoX, aside from actually making sure you're not forgetting about Steos, is playing more around Lecrit rather than just being like, ooh, he's super good. Because he is abandoning his AD carry to make a lot of these plays, and he has some very risky, disrespectful plays around the map. So if you set up some defensive wards and kind of wait for Lecrit to walk towards you, I think it's highly punishable because you can kill him and you can also get an advantage in your duo lane, and that potentially is how you can attack Albus NoX Luna.
Even just getting CS leads 4 sticks as Lecrit breaks it down for us, it could be huge, because as we said, CLG have been one of the teams to play around their bottom lane very intensely, and especially in team fights. One of the ways that they've found
I love the way he talks with his hands.
Success. I know we can almost kind of get in on
my two favorite parts of the crit is support brand and hand talking. Those are the two things.
Game recognizes game, chat.
There we go. I was going to say exactly the same thing. We'll have to get the PTL guys to do a little bit of a mic check on that one, see what they're singing. Just a heads up, guys, the players are almost ready for picks and bans. So the moment Steos gives us the thumbs up, we will be jumping into picks and bans here for CLG. They are now on the blue side for this particular matchup. And, sorry, red side for this matchup. So they're going to have that counter pick option available to them. What can CLG change outside of interacting and interpreting Lecrit's movements? Because that's something that we sort of are expecting them to do, and Afro's definitely got the capabilities to do so.
Definitely we'll see in the first couple of minutes, because in the games where CLG have had success, they're fairly elaborate early level planning from them based on the champions that they get. Whether it's Darshan tanking Krug damage to make the enemy team guess where the jungler is, or Smithy tracking down for very early scuttle crabs, or ghosting into the bottom lane to burn summoners very early. These plans for CLG in the first 5 minutes have gotten them a ton of advantages in their wins.
Yeah, CLG has definitely had one of the strongest early games in thanks to their planning. But we're talking so much about what CLG will do to adapt to ANX, but it's a two-way street. That was an incredibly close game they played before Albus NoX was able to sneak the Baron, and they have to adapt on the other side towards CLG. When they played, Aurelion Sol had been disabled, so that's a new ban Albus NoX had to throw in there.
And of course, taking a look through the rest really quickly. CLG, Brandon, Nivea, Nidalee, Caitlyn, Olaf, Aurelion Sol, and Ania Instalock Siva for Emrakul.
I do like the Anivia ban from CLG. That is one of those adaptations you're talking about, because it is one of the champions Kira is known for, and they do kind of want to put Smurf on one of those tanky champions like Poppy, so high probability of that coming out. The Sivir is a good pickup, though, because Miracle has been kind of left and been the one they sacrifice as far as CS. Now he'll be able to bring the speed to the team.
Yeah, and an early Jace pick by CLG can go to Darshan or to Huhi. All the way back when he was Zion Spartan, he had some tremendous Jace games, so he's always known to play that champion. And with 2 jungle bans, I really love the early Elise.
Also, coming into Worlds, tracking the pros accounts for solo queue in Korea and back over in North America, Jace was one of Darshan's most played champions. And I was expecting, CLG maybe to have some more variation in their team comps. They have been just putting him on tank after tank after tank. Maybe this is the time they do push him to damage, but as you said, very flexible pick, who he could play it as well.
All right, so we're anticipating potentially Darshan's hands, but no, the alternate is available. Where does Steos and the rest of Albus NoX set their sights? We know Smurf had a great Poppy game. That's now been locked in, and Steos will certainly be running the Graves in the jungle. So there's a lot of physical damage on the side of Albus NoX.
With a kind of non-ganking jungler there and a Poppy match up top, I think the Jace does look pretty decent up top so far, but CLG should save their mid pick until they see the entire lineup of ANX before locking in mid. I think they need to save that flexibility at the moment and lock in their duo lane bottom.
And I think they can still pick a pretty versatile bot lane here. They had a lot of success with the Ezreal in their first game, and you wonder if they're going to go with the Bard, the Alistar, the Nami. What type of lane do they want? Do they want hard initiation from Alistar? or do they want a little bit more sustain in lane and a little bit more safety with the Nami?
Especially if they want to keep the probability or the possibility of this Jace top alive, I think a bottom lane, semi-tank support, a melee support for Aframu would be huge, but they're not going to do it. So Karma locked in. And again, we add more flexibility because they could still, have Huhi play Karma mid and lock in a melee support for tank.
That's exactly it. They could have a wicked poke comps right here, but then they're still going to have to make sure they can't get hard initiated on by Albus NoX Luna. Albus NoX, while they have a lot of physical damage, doesn't have much hard initiation. The question will be whether they can find it with these next two picks.
Tahm Kench is available for the crit if he wants to deliver a Poppy to the back line, if a teleport ward isn't available. What else are options here for Albus NoX? Because they're looking for their two, mid laner and support.
I think they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right here, because if it is a poke comp, they're going to want hard initiation with something like an Alistar. But then if you try and play Alistar Sivir against a Lucian Karma lane, you're going to get wrecked in that regard. So they have to find a way to not get completely smashed in lane while still having an answer to a poke composition, which is difficult.
And that question seems to be some heal and some zoning from Bard, as well as wave clear from Victor.
And Bard can definitely do that, because if you have a good Tempered Fate, then a Sivir speed boosted Poppy can get into position where you can angle yourself against the wall when they're going to come out for it. Now, saying that theoretically is all good and well. However, it's very hard to actually pull off in-game. There's a high technical level that you need there, and the Bard from Licrid actually was fairly lackluster as far as the Tempered Fates went, and this is going to require a high level of execution from them.
Yeah, I still think, though, based on the situation, those are exactly the right picks. Maybe you could have seen the Nivea to aid the initiation a little bit, because they could have had the Poppy Nivea once
again.
Well,
it's banned out, so
the Victor's still pretty
that.
good. Yep. That's the way it works. Makes them the right picks, as I was saying.
All right, so CLG, how do they decide to lock this in? If we anticipate Karma Lucian bottom?
Well, I would really love to see Aframu on a playmaker, because, that was one of the biggest things for me for CLG in their huge victory was not only the roaming of Huhi, but also Aframu on the Alistar. He had 100% kill participation pre-15 minutes, but they're going with him on the Nami, and this is going to be, talk about, level of execution. This is a very flimsy team, and you need to land your skill shots, you need to land your poke, and have to be ready for the disengage. Now, that being said, they do have speed and heals from both Karma and Nami to do that. Definitely going to be worried about that lack of front line, though.
It does attack the duo lane a little bit. They already have the Nami buffing up the Lucian, and mid lane Karma does make Stixxay very difficult to kill. And if he does fall down, they still have a very high DPS guy who can benefit from shields in Jace as well. So those are the synergies CLG is working around. But like you say, it's a flimsy composition.
Very offensive here from CLG, and I think it's a good point you mentioned. It does require them, using that offense fairly early. And I'm going to have to watch Smithy, because a lot of these lanes for CLG are going to want to bully early on to try and snowball that, and then they can transition into sieging and getting their poke going. But Smithy on the Elise is going to have to protect that aggression.
And he'll have to change up what he's done from week 1 to week 2, because last week Smithy was hanging around Stixxay a lot more than anybody else. You guys can see the team comps on your screen. You know what to do. Jump onto Twitter and cheer for hashtag ANX win or hashtag CLG win, and let us know who's going to be tying up with the Rocks Tigers for sole control of first place till later in the day. Called it. It's the 6th man in San Francisco. They are behind the North American squad of CLG.
Definitely support for CLG, and we have to mention still how tight this group is at the top. With G2 losing another game, nothing has really been solved yet. There's still a chance for a 3-way tie at 4-2.
Yeah, these teams are tied right now, and Albus NoX Luna have acquired a lot of international fans recently. They are poised to be the most successful wildcard team ever. If they win just one more game this week, they will have the most wins that we've ever seen from a wildcard team.
And if they own the head-to-head over CLG, that could be what decides who he sniffed it out. Oh, the tension.
You are the most tense one up here right now.
To be fair, Kobe, Quickshot and I cast both of the first victory wins for the wildcard teams. We saw INTZ beat EDG, and the first time ANX was victorious. So Quickshot's ready for stuff to happen.
I am, and I was getting to the point we touched on earlier. Having a 2-0 head-to-head when you're that hotly contested at the top of the table could determine whether or not ANX advance. Darshan, no real threat here. He's going to back away.
Gets a really quality ward in, though, to scout out the jungle start from Steos.
It actually is very important because, as we said, Smithy on the Elise, level 3, full kit, ready to create pressure anywhere on the map, especially with these bullying lanes. Whereas Graves generally wants to farm a lot more early on. And if Smithy doesn't make the same mistake that Peanut made when they were playing Albus NoX in the same matchup, face check the Graves and then fight him in the jungle, then he should be able to try and control the map for the early stages.
Yeah, and they get to see Stayhouse right at the start here. I think moves like that speak to a CLG mindset where they're always going to try and take an advantage when it's there. I think from a macro perspective, a lot of times when people would play against wildcard teams in the past, they would almost play overly passive because there was this expectation that the way you would lose is you kind of get cheesed and you want to just make sure you neutralize the game because you're better than them. That's no longer the way teams can look at Albus NoX Luna. So when CLG see 3 people on Albus NoX at the bottom side of the map at level 1, Darshan immediately goes in to get the next ward, even though it's a slightly risky play, because that's what they need to do to advance their victory. So I expect a more aggressive CLG this game than the first time they played.
Definitely true. You see Stixay miss a CS down bottom and then go back up to the top side. The way that Darshan would want to play that matchup, meanwhile, never mind, down bottom here, the bullying, they actually want to play it in a similar fashion. The Jace wants to abuse his range, get into the bush so that you drop aggro from the ranged minions. Bottom lane doing the same. Darshan going aggressive here.
Goes into hammer form to the skies, drops down the charge.
So Stayhouse is actually going for an early Graves gank, which you don't expect at all, and for good reason. You see there, he doesn't have any CC to bring to the table. Kira is on Victor. There's no way they're setting up any sort of meaningful play onto Huhi, and all he really did there was reveal himself. Yeah. That's one of those things where you give away a little bit of unnecessary information as a jungler, and you can only do that so many times before Smithy really is able to punish you. Honestly, though, Smithy had also skipped his red, and there was a slight opportunity there for ANX to punish, but you wouldn't really expect that to be there, so.
And Miracle and Lecrit really fighting for CS down bottom, 8-17. Yes, there is a big wave in front of the Miracle. They can't afford to give up too many. Is constantly being pushed by Stixay and Afro. And now is underneath the tower as well. Afro and Stixay are going to get some chip damage. First of the towers for now.
Yeah, and they're going to have to be relatively careful when they're pushing up that lane, but with that being said, Graves' gank isn't the most lethal one unless Bard can land Dream Stuns on them.
Ooh, a little bit of a stun, but no mana to follow up.
And remember, this does bring me back to Champion Select, where I talk about the way this Jace matchup wants to play against Poppy, bully him out.
Dive. Steos is here, though.
That's risky!
This is a pin into the wall. Like Smithy's in trouble. He flashes away with his life, lands a good defensive cocoon, but blows his own summoner spell on a dive.
In that, the only positive there for CLG is that they did deny a couple of CS, because if Smurf was able to CS kind of freely there, he would have caught right back up to even against Darshan. And now, Darshan is kind of milking this very slight CS lead that he does have against him, but he's lost control of the wave, and he might have to teleport back to the lane.
Yeah, and I think it was great instincts from Steos. CLG's lucky to get out of that one alive. All of it was pretty much fog of war as far as the approach on those ganks. So Smithy was hoping that Steos wasn't there, but he really didn't know.
And that's exactly how you want to play the Graves matchup. Get the counter ganks and the farm advantage. Stayhouse intelligently immediately moves over to CLG territory. We saw him there on the screen stealing away the Raptors. Even though he got a ward over, nothing he can do. He's out of mana. And Grave takes his small tax for that overextension.
And already before 5 minutes, Smithy has attempted a tower dive in the top lane, in Darshan's lane, when Darshan's running his first carry champion of Worlds 2016. 2 Poppy games and a Gnar under his belt. The team style that we saw for CLG from week 1 to week 2 is now very different in this pick and ban, and there's a lot more reliance on Darshan to show up.
Yeah, CLG definitely pivot their strategy a little bit, not having Huhi on something like Syndra, who they're trying to dominate the lane with. This is very much a side lane focused CLG team. They're expecting to win with the Lucian and Nami without jungle assistance, and if they get Darshan assistance in the top lane, that's their plan to have 2 of 3 winning lanes with a high gold support in the mid lane, is what CLG would want to have.
Seems to be the case for now. Plus 8 CS, Sticks and Afro again, shoving in a Miracle. Miracle and Lecrit having a very difficult time. And for Lecrit, he's going to step up with those Tempered Fates.
Stixay is missing quite a bit of CS that are just sort of sitting there, right? And not really picking up the gold that's on the ground, though. So not punishing as heavily as they possibly could if you're expecting, perfect play. All right, up here on stage, which is rarely the case. Smithy, though, getting that deep vision down for the bottom side as well. You talk about protecting those side lanes, allowing them to play up and play aggressive. That is one of the key moments there, as Smithy does get some of that deep vision. They can track the Stejos.
Currently at the Grom, up in the top half of the map. Both Darshan and Smurf, they backed away. They've used their teleport to lane. Recalled again, picked up a few more items, still even on CS. Really across the board, small advantage for Stejos versus small advantage for Stixay. But nothing to write home about and nothing super chaotic in this early game yet. So this is pretty good for CLG because their team comp will come alive in the next sort of 10 or so minutes.
And there's a chance we see a really low kill game throughout the mid game and maybe even towards the late game just because of the complete lack of hard initiation on CLG and the fact that Albus NoX is going to be struggling to initiate on CLG as well. As far as the farming goes, it's really all about trying to keep pace if you're Albus NoX right now.
Definitely true. And since people haven't seen, a tremendous amount of poke comps or a tremendous amount of siege comps recently, Stixay gets a hit there with the binding. We are going to see this game really start to unfold when we transition in the next few minutes afterwards towards killing the turrets. After one of these lanes that CLG have that are pushing starts to whittle down the turret, then they can start to, bring in the extra range champions, group up, go for the siege, and you try and snowball the outer turret lead. That's where you really build momentum in these matchups. Meanwhile, as you mentioned for ANX, they want those flanks from Smurf and the Tempered Fates to hit from Lecrit.
Confidence then for Albus NoX. They have to find those abilities, find those opportunities, and start with some vision. Oh, flash away from Afro. Didn't quite see how that one built up. Can only imagine it was a stun. Smurfs is looking for a fight into Darshan. Actually going to come away way worse for wear. Picks up the buckler. It's action all over the map. He's running away from the Chaos Storm. The Death Ray won't kill him though. Flash is up and available. And looking at it, Summoner spells, only Afro's was used.
Yeah, and CLG seems like they're trying to apply a lot of pressure, but Albus NoX is fighting back in a pretty big way. CLG has the map position, but they don't have the health bars. They're just getting hit as they're walking in, and it's hard to gain an advantage that way.
Afro definitely has to play very careful now. He's squishy on Nami. Stixay, though, dealing a lot with that culling.
Here's Stejos. Where's the Tempered Fate? He's caught himself.
He has no flash either.
Afro moves the target. No flash. Too early on the light binding. End of the line. And Lecrit takes down Afro.
Great punish there from ANX, and with all the pressure on for Lecrit, he lands the Tempered Fate. There's the playmaking. They're able to find that first blood.
Total over-aggression from CLG. Afro stayed up there without flash. He did have the ability to dodge the Bard ultimate. And then Smithy also wasn't there in case of a 3v3. You'd expect them to only stay pushed up if they have the Elise, but they had the wave in a spot. They thought they'd be getting the harass. I think they were trying to make sure they shoved it in so it could bounce it, and that's exactly when Albus NoX arrives. Great instincts.
Cutting down Afro. There we go, playing around Lecrit. Stejos comes in, waits for the spells to land. It does, and that was a lane that CLG was winning. Now they're behind.
And it's the second time Stejos has been to a wave at exactly the right time. So much of jungling isn't just about pathing, it's about understanding where your team's minion waves are and lending support at exactly the right moment. He stuffed the gank in the top lane, nearly got first blood then. Waits until CLG is greeting a minion wave into the turret, gets the first kill. What the heck?
And
he wants that wave of minions. He just committed the teleport. He could have canceled it, obviously, and then just decided to walk, but commits his flash as well for that wave of minions.
So, Lecrit to Stejos, if they decide to roam up and punish Huhi without flash, that could be a way for Albus NoX to get another kill on the board.
That's the thing, Jad just talked about, informing your jungler of the minion waves, but also informing them that Aframu had just had his flash blown, and in a lane with a Bard, you have to respect the ultimate.
Didn't happen, and that meant Afro went down. Kira takes a big chunk of damage, despite Huhi sort of teleporting in and wasting his flash.
Ooh.
Look at the control now.
Be careful about running into Fog of War, though. Chasing into an Elise.
Oh, yeah, but Huhi's going without Elise. He misses. Huhi's down. Stejos is looking for more. Lecrit's joined the fight. Tempered Fate's up in a second, but Smithy's hugging the tower. Light binding goes wide. And Albus NoX 2-0 in kills.
Yeah, we mentioned it, Champ Select too. CLG is going to have to land their skill shots, but they also have to have numbers advantages if they're going to go for play.
Yeah, Huhi just runs straight into the lane rather than trying to run to the jungler and run away, and they give up another kill. This is Albus NoX Luna taking a big early advantage. Even though they see the Bard coming, that was very risky and punished Prairie Click very quickly there.
Yeah. And when you see the Bard coming, you have to make the quick pivot, monitoring the Q on Huhi instead of monitoring one of his defensive abilities and making the retreat.
Yeah.
Cost him his life.
Definitely have to go full defensive in that scenario because that Lecrit roam actually up from bottom was very, very important there. Landed the last Tempered Fate on a flashless target.
Another flash for targets still available. Moby Boots for Lecrit. Got Tempered Fate available as well. Albus NoX 1,000 gold up at 11 minutes 50, and you hear this time and time again. If a poke comp falls behind, it's cataclysmically difficult to come back into the game.
And remember, both of those small advantages were earned in lane first. You know, by the duo lane down bottom, blowing Aphromu's flash. And then in the mid lane with Huhi continuing to channel his teleport and then flashing so he could grab the minions.
There's one thing that is working for CLG. Stixxay is still farming up a storm.
Yeah.
What's that? Plus 25 CS, if math is okay. Lecrit's looking for something, but Stixxay dashes away.
Yeah, but with that being said, Lecrit, first on the roam, oftentimes in this lane. They were able to punish Aphromu for being pushed up so far. And COD doesn't have a huge amount of playmaking opportunities. So really, Albus NoX should continue to farm, and Steos is just really arriving at the right time to all these waves.
Oh, Stixxay, he gets exhausted. Good boomerang. Stixxay's running for his life. Tempered Fate. Look for the target to hit. Oh! Stixxay's down. A miracle and Lecrit take them out. Afro's the target. He goes golden. Lecrit's not going to find the stun this time round. Flash for flash. Teleport came down from Dashan. He's coming in from the river. Afro's looking to chase. The tidal wave's thrown out, but Kira's going to look to interrupt. Now there's a 3-on-3. Lecrit, it helps the race of the dragon. Not going to work out. Dashan's pinned against the wall. No teleport for Smurf. It's not available. They've traded 1-for-1. Dashan's down. Kira will go shortly. They end up trading a 1-for-2 in favor of CLG.
Very, very chaotic scattering down there around bottom. But remember, once again, it started out with some over-aggression from CLG's bottom lane. Stixxay getting caught by the Cosmic Binding before the flash. So once that tags him, it registers the wall behind him already, and he's still stunned when he goes over. Right there. Once it tags, you're stunned. Immediately follow up there.
On the dash there and flash from Stixxay, and they were trying so hard to push this advantage, they end up trading 2-for-2 after the teleport gets used in.
Right. The ANX bottom lane, they see the teleport in the bush, so they immediately go for the magical journey up towards the river to their mid laner. And Darshan has to go really deep there. He actually traded his flash for that as well. Kira going to be able to get the exchange kill on the way out with Victor, and CLG do clean it up. But this game going very rough for them in the early stages.
And I want to give us some praise to how quick Lecrit and A Miracle were to flash away and then jump in that magical journey. They knew the threat of Darshan, tried to get out alive, but CLG straight up outplayed them. So even Stevens, Smithy's in trouble, repels up, tries to get away. Kira didn't have his Chaos Storm, otherwise that would have been a squash spider. Instead has to back away.
Yeah, and COG still trying to push into Albus NoX and getting repeatedly punished.
Not stolen. Kira gets a good attempt though.
Yeah, very good attempt, but the patience to pull it into the brush, wait for the burst to hit from COD, and then secure, knowing that COD was going to be taking blind shots in with very high damage abilities. They welcomed the assistance on the blue buff kill.
There we go. Welcome the assistance. Gentle love tap.
And this bottom lane is actually incredibly close in gold, despite how much the CS difference would say otherwise, because of the kills that they've been able to get on this team. Dashing in over the back, they're going to get an Ocean Drake too, which will only assist their laning phase and is great to have against a poke comp.
No contest at all from CLG. A Miracle and Crit, they cut off the route for the bottom lane. Take a glimpse mid. No, going to cut top instead as Darshan's being bullied. Support's coming in from Smithy and Smurf, I think. He's sticking around way too long. Flashes up, and the keeper's verdict. Cocoon in his face, this should come down. Nope, baited it out. Spidey senses tingling.
Yeah, Smurf definitely does. Ooh, actually, after was caught.
And he hit. Oh, very good bubble. Doesn't matter though. 2-1-1.
And what's Lecrit doing taking that kill? He was dead to rights without a flash, and Steos just had to come out of the stasis, but nope. 2-1-1 on the crit.
He is a support carry, remember? Steos looking for more. No Tempered Fate. End of the line bounces. Stixxay's being run down by Steos on that red buff. This might even be Tower First Blood, in fact. Catch a quick glimpse. Chaos Storm chasing Huhi away. And Steos and Lecrit pulling that minion wave backwards to allow a Miracle to push up and extend this gold lead even further. It's 1,500 and 2 towers under pressure.
Yeah, this does get risky for CLG as they want to defend this turret, but they just don't have the manpower. They're calling down Smithy to try and even the numbers, but it's so late here. Turret extremely low.
Turret's not going to fall though. Steos takes a lot of damage and he's forced away. While that's happening,
Top
Albus
lane!
NoX are winning every single lane. Kira's in trouble by Huhi, and Huhi's going to continue to push him away. Get those mantra Qs over and over. But as it stands, the CIS are going toe-to-toe with the North American LCS for the second time.
And this game could get out of hand pretty quickly if they're able to get the bot, mid, and top lane turrets in quick succession. They have the Ocean Drake to enhance their laning phase. First turret blood up to Smurf. This is very impressive by Albus NoX.
For the third time in 4 games, Albus NoX have secured first blood, first tower, and first dragon.
And here's the thing, we can talk about, hey, they surprised people with Brandon and Ivia, or they snuck Baron, but this is as conventional as they come. Their team composition is full of meta picks, and they're just winning lanes and timing their ganks properly. If they win this, at least the first 17 minutes of this has been the most impressive game Albus NoX has played yet at Worlds.
Great punishes over and over on the CLG aggression from Albus NoX Luna. They are making them pay for trying to have these winning lanes.
I have to go all the way back to pick some bans. CLG opted into the strategy. The games that CLG won last week was the tank up top. It was in our pregame. The style that CLG was playing. This is not that style, and it's put them in a 2,000 goal deficit as we're approaching 20 minutes.
Vision is going to be incredibly important as we move towards the mid game. With all the towers falling for CLG, that opens up more space for Smurf to get into the fog of war, go for a flank, for these Bard Temper Fates to pick people off. CLG are losing a lot of defenses with the extra gold they're giving away as the turrets start to go down.
They are falling relatively quickly. Doshan Smith trading back and forth. That hammer form from Doshan, doing a bit of damage to Smurf. And again, action, multiple lanes at the same time. Kira's going to sidestep, puts a Chaos Storm, who he's running to support. Kira, he might chase, but there's a good pink ward in the river bush, and he's gonna back away. Looking at the minimap, the crit's coming up. They could look for a target, but no Chaos Storm, so not likely just yet.
Yeah, still just solid mid lane pressure from Kira. He pushes Huhi in a little bit, gets the wave to the turret, also draws a jungler up, and yes, it cost his ultimate in his ghost, but he still has flash, and the pressure can continue for Albus NoX as far as the mid lane and the bottom lane pushes are concerned.
Very deep wards in the red buff jungle of Counter Logic Gaming. Pink and invisible ward from Albus NoX. That's one avenue for Smurf to get in from behind. And they're going to start themselves off the Rift Herald just before it goes down. Not a huge amount of priority on the Rift Herald here at Worlds.
Yeah, this is only the 5th Rift Herald we've seen in now our 26th game, but that's going to be huge for Smurf up top against Darshan.
Exactly, because he wants to try and split up on the opposite side and then just make CLG worry about wards that are behind them. When CLG group up and they try and take advantage of their synergies, going for the poke and the siege at turrets, they're going to have to always worry about clearing wards behind them, having pink wards on their flanks, because this Poppy, especially with Rift Herald, is going to be off on the side and is going to be a threat to come in.
All right, he's used his teleport. No threat from that one for now. We've just hit 20 minutes. Ardent Sensor picked up. He's still defending that mid lane tower. Smithy, I think he smited that one away.
Yeah, you got the big one, but the small ones all go over to Graves there.
Steos will be happy with that trade. Looking at CS number 6, it continues to accelerate ahead, approaching 40 CS, but that's just going to counterbalance the tower and kill and assist gold that Miracle's got.
Exactly, and if CLG wants to win this game, Stixxay is going to have to get a lot of the kills just because so much of their team composition is channeled towards making Stixxay more powerful. Huhi has gone the ultimate support karma. Ardent Sensor, Athene's Unholy Grail, to the Ghostblade Stixxay. He really needs to pick up some kills if they want to have any chance in these team fights. And I'm even going to hazard to say, they'd also have to pick off Kira, because Kira is going to kill Stixxay at this point of the game with the items he has. So really, CLG need a lot to go right to come back in this.
And that was the expectation of the team comp. Flimsy, no real front line. Need to get some of that poke down. And Darshan's going to look to set up around objective. Stixxay going to continue to pressure this tower. Chunked a Miracle down, but Miracle's got a bunch of those Caretaker Shrines, and that's allowed him to top off his HP.
And once again, Sejos is on the bottom side of the map where they're expecting the extra pressure to come from. As CLG pushes up, they bring Smithy in.
Cocoon connects, but no one to follow up. Xmithy just looking to help pressure this bottom lane. Now Steos is coming to party, moving through the jungle, and it's a Cloud Drake next. This could benefit both teams to help counter their opponent's team composition strengths. But no real safe opportunity to take it yet.
Yeah, and CLG with the 3,000 gold deficit and the Rylai's Crystal Scepter being completed on Kira, not to mention the Iceborne Gauntlet on Smurf. The item breakpoints are so heavily in the favor of Albus NoX right now. They're actually going for a play mid.
Well, not going to work out who he's going to be able to accelerate away. We jump up top, Smurf, he's looking to challenge. He's gone toe-to-toe. There's a minion line, though. Smurf is going to taxi away. Darshan's looking for a shock boss. We jump back to the river. Tidal Wave's been used. Afro and Stixo running. Look at the death ray. Look at the back line. Collateral damage. Takes out Stixo. Kira's not done. Siphon power, sidestep Cocoon. He eats a volatile Spiderling, but that won't matter. Steos looking for more. Flash for flash, but that's good, because it's mid for support. The crit's the target. That's going to help Huhi HP-wise, but that's another kill to Albus NoX.
ANX are actually tearing CLG apart right now. Victories across the map. They're going to get another objective in the Drake. They also get another one of those outer turrets to fall, like we talked about, opening up more of the map for them. They are setting themselves up very well to take this. That flash from Kira to land the laser gets the Rylai slow, and even after Stixay flashes, Stejos covers the ground.
Yeah, the ultimate there from Steos, just the icing on the cake when they know who they have to kill as well. It's so obvious with this CLG composition, and Albus NoX is surgical in the way they're doing this to CLG, actually. It definitely feels like everyone on CLG is playing like they have to carry the game. You look at the way Darshan is trading in the top lane, burning a flash in a 1v1 when he doesn't even really have a chance to kill, or Stixay Nafamu losing Stixay because they're sticking around with 25% health in the lane. All of these things are backfiring, and Albus NoX is the team that's playing cool, that's playing the proper way right now.
All right, there's the exchange where Smithy bit off way too much, and here you can see the slow lands. So Stejos fires the ultimate, still explodes because it hit the max range there, and it explodes in a giant cone. So the edge of the cone did tag Stixay, even though he flashed further. Finds the kill.
Well, goal deficit is gigantic. 5,000. Albus NoX Luna came into this game saying that they have the ability to play macro. They have the individual ability, mechanically, to match everybody in their group so far. And they might tie their record with the Rocks Tigers at the top of the group.
Yep, they catch Huhi.
It's out, pin onto Afro move. Afro's down. Huhi gets knocked up into the air. He's exhausted. Albus NoX have comboed everything perfectly. Licrit gets another. They take another tower, and now Xmithy's the target. Chaos Storm's gonna run him down. Xmithy, he's pinned. Albus NoX, 9 kills to 2, and they're peeling back for Baron.
And there's such clean plays by Albus NoX Luna. Huhi's sitting at the turret. They're Bard ulting. They're killing Aphromu while they have Huhi caught in stasis, and they turn immediately onto Baron. They're going to get another pre-25-minute Baron, but it's not going to be because they have to sneak it unless Darshan can somehow pull off a miracle.
Shock Blast, Acceleration Gate, that's what Darshan needs to do. There's a couple of abilities over the wall. Albus NoX, they've got vision. Smurf, not going to go just yet. They've stopped the Baron. Got to look to burst it. Blocked off. Not going to work out. Baron to Albus NoX at 25 minutes.
Just straight up steamrolling CLG this game. They are so far ahead now. The Baron opens up their extra sieging from them. They can break tier 2s now.
This is so impressive from Albus NoX right now. And yes, it definitely feels like CLG is not playing with the knowledge of their giant deficit. They should be defending this turret. They didn't have the proper vision control, and Albus NoX rotated 5 people here, and CLG wasn't even close. Then CLG kind of meanders in. Like, what is Xmithy really hoping to accomplish against 5 people taking the short way around and then flashing over the wall? Yes, Albus NoX is absolutely crushing them, but CLG is walking into them over and over again.
And then falling and dying and giving up everything to Albus NoX.
This could be a historic win for the LCL. Albus NoX put themselves into a very good position to get out of the groups if they can take this victory.
Exactly, because remember, this game would give them a 2-0 lead over CLG. there is still a possibility of a three-way tie in 4-2, but that would require, assuming if CLG is to lose this game, that would require CLG to beat ROX and also G2. It would also require everyone to beat G2 because they'd have to stay at 0-6. If any of the other things happen, Albus NoX would be able to at least get a tiebreaker with the third win. TLDR, they're in a fantastic position if they win this game.
They will have secured more wins at a World Championship than any wildcard team before. Last year, Pain picked up 2. Albus NoX look to go 3 wins, 1 loss. Only ROX Tigers able to take them down here in Group A. Cocoon onto Steos is good, but very big shield from the Locket. Kira gets rooted down. No, he forces to flash. Tower's gonna fall on the first attempt. CLG unable to do anything. Big chunk of damage onto A Miracle as he's gonna sidestep the gravity field. Next target's the inhibitor. And Albus NoX gonna back away because Smurf is pushing the top lane and the rest of the team's peeling for mid.
Yeah, and CLG just has such pathetic damage at this stage in the game. They had to get Last Whisper as a second item on Darshan's Jace. They have a fully supportive Karma, and they're also 10,000 gold behind. So really, Albus NoX is just running in circles right now. Bard ultimate lands, they go in.
Tempered Fate catches Afromu, they're gonna take him down. Turn the attention over to the tower. Chaos Storm is ripping through Counter Logic Gaming, and Albus NoX, they've turned their attention onto the inhibitor turret. Looking at the objective, trying to put pressure down. No one from CLG can defend, and it's pressure on multiple lanes. Albus NoX open up the base, another tower down, an inhibitor falls, and Albus NoX, they're gonna take even more. The top lane's falling. The rest of CLG, they're looking to get one back. Kira's the target. CLG still haven't killed him. Licrit's gonna sidestep the bubble. Aqua Prison not gonna lock him down. Darshan flashes forward. Keeper's Verdict will slow down the rest of the engage. 2 inhibitors for only Licrit.
2 inhibitors and 13,000 gold ahead at 28 minutes for ANX.
This
absolutely destroyed CLG here.
It's a slaughter, and they're getting poke onto Stixxay at the start of every fight, which is preventing the one true damage dealer CLG have right now from participating. They poke everyone down incredibly low and just take 2 turrets at once.
Whew. It is definitely going to be a miracle if CLG can come back from this one. They have been able to pull off miracles before, but they also do not have a good team fighting composition with nobody really able to play that front line. So it would have to also come from an unforced error from ANX that CLG would be able to punish.
Well, I don't think it's likely. Albus NoX have shown so much class across the 4 games here at Worlds. Who he's gonna root Smurf down does literally no damage. Smurf's buckler blocks everything.
Definitely.
The Athene's Ardent Sensor, not the damage-dealing Karma builds.
Yeah, and that allows Smurf to go Thornmail Ninja Tabi. They're not going to be able to do damage to him because they don't have a true mage right now with that supportive build, and they're stacked AD everywhere else.
Steos eats a Cocoon. Culling comes up, but Stixxay's running low.
3 minutes.
It's Albus NoX Luna with a miracle, and he's looking for more. Smurf gets a kill. CLG are rooted. They're running for their lives. The 3rd inhibitor of the game is falling, and Albus NoX Luna now have super minions. They've set their targets on the Nexus turrets, and I don't think CLG can defend this one. Albus NoX from the CIS, from the LCL, they are doing what no wildcard team has done before. Albus NoX Luna have got one giant foot in the door to Chicago on the way to the quarterfinals.
And this was their most impressive win by a wide margin. This was a 30-minute stomp of CLG.
A historic victory here for Albus NoX. Very, very impressive. Standard composition, punishing mistakes over and over.
Yeah, we talked about the things the teams would do to adapt to Albus NoX. Block their brand, block the Anivia, don't let them sneak Baron. CLG did those things, but they didn't even come close to preventing them from winning this game.
That's fantastic sportsmanship there as Licrit and A Miracle give Afromu a hug. Ladies and gentlemen, in Group A, tied for first place with the ROX Tigers is Albus NoX Luna at 3 wins and 1 loss.
And the crowd respectfully giving them some applause after that win over the team that is the hometown favorites in CLG. It's going to be, it makes this group so crazy.
We've just watched history be made. For the first time, a team from what was called a wildcard region, I think we need to get rid of that name because INTZ are stepping up. They're showing the world they took down EDG. Albus NoX took down the number 2 seed from North America, the number 1 seed from Europe.
They are legit.
Convincingly.
If they want to win the group, they'd have to take down the ROX Tigers, right? And you look back to the first 13 minutes of their very first game, they were in a position where they would have been able to do those things. Now that I feel like they've really calmed down as far as the way they're playing.
Exactly. I mean, Wildcard was apt when they're pulling out brand support and Anivia Poppy surprise, but this was so standard. Like, you don't get much more standard there, and all they did was right by the books. You punish the aggression, coming in with, good jungle support, and they just ran straight through CLG this game. There was no point where you really felt like CLG, had a big leg up. Yes, the bottom lane is playing aggressively and punishing, but
then Afro dies.
Exactly. They weather the storm very well, and they punish multiple times.
So now what does this mean for CLG? Because they don't leave the stage, right? They don't pack up. We play all Group A games today. CLG have 10, 15 minutes to prepare for G2, and there's 0-2. Now, of course, in order for CLG to win, they have to take down both ROX and G2 to set up some sort of shenanigans here, because the tiebreaker is not in their favor against this team.
Yep, all wins are must-win now for CLG. And actually, if you look at the CLG ROX matchup, if CLG win that game, then they would have tiebreaker over ROX, actually.
Yes.
And you're looking at the possibilities of ANX and CLG getting off. The tournament favorites not getting out of groups is unheard of.
Yeah, there's definitely lots that can still happen in this group. Yes, it could be decided a little bit early, depending on if G2 want to EUNA and just make sure no one makes it out of the group from either of those regions, because that's what G2 has the potential to do here. They can dictate a lot of this as well, but it's going to be really hard for CLG to recover in a short time frame and get ready for their next game.
Well, that's what they have to do. They are backstage. Before we find out how they recover, we're going to head on stage to talk to Shox as well as Albus NoX Luna's jungler.
Thank you very much. Very happy, PvP sales. And you were explaining to me just before what they actually usually call you, the Russian casters?
Okay, the Russian casters call me Stajor.
And what does it mean?
It's like associate, so low-tier worker.
Okay. Stahot? Okay. Well, you weren't a low-tier worker in this one. You did amazingly. I want to ask you about the team comp. We thought, what is Albus NoX Luna going to do? Is it going to be a crazy team comp? Is it a special plan? But you went for a very normal, conventional team comp. Why in this one versus CLG?
Well, when versus G2, we thought that they're pretty hard, like mechanically. So versus CLG, we thought that they are very good as a team, and if we won't do bad stuff in the early game, we will have a good possibility to win the game if we pick later team comp. So at the start of the game, me and Smurf outsmarted like Xmitty. It was pretty obvious moves that they dive top lane, and after that, the game was very easy for me as a jungler.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself. We look at ANX, we look at Kira, we look at Liquid has so much hype. Tell me about PvP sales as a jungler in Albus NoX Luna.
Well, I started jungling only this year, so I play since season 1 in League of Legends when I was around 14, and I started as an AD carry, got high elo, then got to top lane, and in this year I am like a jungler. So it's like a first year of jungling for me.
Yeah, first year of jungling, you made it to Worlds, and you might be the first team from the LCL to make it out of groups. Tell me, how are you thinking about the rest of your day? If you win all 3 games, you make it, but there are a lot of possibilities. What's your mindset like? How do you keep calm and just bring it home for your region?
Well, at the start, when we only qualified, we thought that, okay, we got like group of the death, so G2, the rank 1 from the Europe, rank 2, if I remember well, from NA, and like ROX Tigers, like the best top laner in the world and stuff. And we were like, okay, guys, we have a possibility to go 0-6, but in the first game, we felt like power from winning early game versus ROX Tigers, and we understood that we are the same people as they are. There are no difference in nationalities or region. You need to just play better than your opponent, and that's how we win.
Yeah. That's how you win, and that's how you've won 3 games so far, and you have a huge chance of getting out of groups here. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Albus NoX Luna with another win on the board over CLG.
Thank you very much, Shocks. Albus NoX Luna doing the LCL proud here, getting the 2-0 in the head-to-head against CLG. That might do wonders for them further down the line today. But let's talk about how they crafted this victory for themselves. We talked about maybe taking them off of their unconventional picks in Anivia and Brem. That didn't seem to do CLG much good.
No, we saw them actually ban those two out, and then they actually went for, on ANX's side, just a kind of a standard composition here, but CLG, they end up drafting 3 winning lanes, but because of the in-game play, you see that none of those lanes actually get off the ground. The top lane has that counter that Stejos was talking about with the dive, obvious move, completely countered by the map movements. Mid lane, execution from who he was really off in this game, and then in the bottom lane, it was actually complete outplays there because Stixxay and Aframu weren't actually respecting that bottom lane enough.
Yeah, and even though you would say that they have 3 winning lanes, I do want to talk about ease of execution because the composition that CLG put together, if it doesn't get rolling early, has 2 supports and pretty much 2 AD carries with no front line. Whereas when you look at Albus NoX, they have a team comp that comes online in the mid game and can team fight so incredibly well, and they have the wave clear to get them there through the Sivir, through the Victor. So I really do think that this was a little bit disrespectful to go all in on the early game and then not be able to execute in these late game team fights.
I just want to dive into one of those matchups in particular, and I usually dislike it when people say X player was playing poorly or Y, but Huhi, we're actually going into replay, so I'll make all my points after. We can see what happens in the early game already because he's losing the early game here as he's missing this very crucial Mantra Q. The point is he's losing the matchup early, and we'll get back into why that matters later, but then he goes for the teleport back into the lane. He enters the gravity field, has to flash out immediately, and that eventually will lead 30 seconds later into his death, so he was definitely being pressured by the Victor. But the whole reason I wanted to bring up this particular matchup is because push is so important in League of Legends. It's so important that you get control of the game early, and in the Karma versus Victor matchup, people say, doesn't Victor push you in early? But I actually checked the numbers. Karma Q has 10 damage more than Victor Laser. In addition to that, Karma can send a Q out every 7 seconds. Victor has to send out a laser every 13 seconds. So in terms of wave push, Karma can always control that lane. In addition to that, she can empower her Q and both poke the minion wave and the enemy Victor at the same time. With good positioning, you can never get poked by both if you're Karma versus Victor. So in every single matchup, Hui should be pushing. In addition to that, he has no jungle pressure because the Graves and the Victor can't actually kill him unless Graves shows up with the red buff, and even then Flash saves you. So Hui just royally misplayed this matchup, didn't put a pressure point on the map for CLG, and then had a lot of individual errors after that.
And then in the mid game, he was never really a damage source for the team either because he built 2 supportive items, Merc Treads, and then everybody else on his team is physical damage. And then the top laner Smurf, he just builds Thorn Mail on Poppy, stacking armor, and you can't kill him.
And that's the thing, Karma has such great base damage that you can augment with 2 offensive items and then rotate in the utility position and buff up your team. But if you're running a poke comp with Karma Jace that wants to group up later, you can just go for an early Morellonomicon into a Rabadons, and your poke will shred the enemy to bits, and you can actually get control. Hui was a glorified shield bot in the mid game because he went Merc Thread's double support item.
Yeah, and I think like my final thing on that draft is just Vladimir there wouldn't actually be a bad pick at all because you would have the Karma thrown down to the support role, and then you'd have another backup. You'd have a high magic damage dealer so that, you know, there's something else there that you can actually kind of leverage because it felt as though that last pick, they were like, oh, we have a poke comp. We want some type of disengage, something to keep us a little bit safer. And I feel like the Nami and the fact that they built the Karma defensive was not doing them any favors.
Good point. That Karma could have been a flex. They could have altered their composition as they saw what Albus NoX locked in. Didn't work out for them. I want to now jump to what you were talking about, the ease of execution and also the way that Albus NoX's team comp comes online in that mid game. 24 minutes into the game, we see a 3-for-0 team fight that nets them the Baron. That's going to be the tools they need to knock down those in hits.
And this is super standard. They see a couple of members in the mid lane, they bard ult you to start it up, opportunistic, dive onto Afro, get rid of all the CC, and then clean up the back end of the team fight. More impressively, ballsy Baron call on the back end of it, they execute nicely, and they pick up the buff that's going to close out the game ultimately. This was just super clean.
Yeah, and it shows what composition failures CLG has if they fall behind, and this is exactly the reason they need to be playing with forward pressure so they can avoid this entire scenario, because if this comp falls behind, there's not much CLG can do out here, but they have the tools, just like Zyrene pointed out earlier, to push in bot, pressure that lane, pressure in the mid lane, invade the enemy jungle, start rotating on the map, Instead, they just played super passive, got picked out, got individually outplayed, and Albus NoX Luna 100% deserved this victory.
And I love to see gold graphs like that, because a gold graph that looks like that, it shows that a team is executing properly, and they're the ones pushing their snowball forward, right? It was very, very clean the whole way through. It's time now to award player of the game. It's going to go to the man who you saw on your screen getting interviewed, PvP, stay host there. I mean, we talked about, it might be an obvious move, but if he doesn't make that move, that could have been the snowball going in the other direction early game for CLG.
Yeah, I really do think the top lane counter gank into the bottom lane gank where he picked up the kill, and then the rotation into the mid lane just showed that this guy was tracking them around Summoner's Rift and knew where his pressure point was, so he was able to facilitate all that early game play.
All right, well, early game for Albus NoX translating into late game, so they looked good across the board here. But as we look forward, they are now 3-1, gentlemen, 2-0 over CLG. Is this going to be the first time we see a wildcard team make it out of groups?
Yep, 100%. I think that when you see that play, I mean, they look much more solid and fundamentally sound than we thought they were going to be. We knew that they had some cheesy stuff or some unconventional picks, but when they go back to a standard comp, they played the laning phase well, only fell behind in the bottom lane. And I think that is good enough right now to get it done against G2, so they should make it out.
I'm running the scenarios in my head right here, but barring a major collapse from Rox Tigers, CLG at best can tie them 3-3, right?
It's going to be difficult. I don't want to try and run it in my head right now.
I think they are pretty much qualified unless Rox really starts dropping all their games.
But being 3-1, that sets them up beautifully. So here we go. ANX looking good after game 2 of the day. Join us on the other side of the break when G2 faces off against CLG.
We are readying up for our second match of the day between Albus NoX Luna and Counter Logic Gaming. Steos, here's Steos. Where's the tempered fate? He's caught himself.
He has no flash either.
Afro moves the target, no flash. Too early on the live binding. End of the line. 6-8 running for his life. Tempered fate. Look for the target to hit. Stick stays down.
They catch Huhi.
It's out. Pin onto Afro move. Afro's down. Huhi gets knocked up into the air. He's exhausted. Albus NoX have comboed everything perfectly. Albus NoX Luna have got one giant foot in the door to Chicago.